Borderlands 4 released in September of 2025 for the PlayStation and Xbox consoles and PC through Steam. Retailing for $70 the game features online multiplayer, split screen, and a story that took me about 40 hours to complete. Although my console only registers 12 hours of that gameplay, adding to the list of technical problems Borderlands 4 has. So, is Borderlands 4 worth playing on console, even for a current sale price of 30% off and multiple patches? This review is going to answer that question.
So, you want to hear a story, huh? Yeah, old Marcus still has a few tales to tell. And this is the start of something new. A spark that just might leave the galaxies themselves ablaze.
Let's begin the review by discussing the technical performance of Borderlands 4 on console. The game is still rough, even after so many patches. The FPS is mostly stable, although it does tank a few times as you traverse the world or get into big battles. But it's the bugs and glitches that are the biggest downside to Borderlands 4. Enemy AI is poor, and they are very frequently glitching into objects and walls or go out of bounds in a mission. This normally wouldn't be game-breaking, but the developers base a lot of their mission design on defeating or clearing all enemies within an area. I would often have an enemy stuck in some out-of-the-way area, preventing me from completing the mission. I would need to teleport out, restarting the mission, or use grenades creatively in order to pin down where the enemy was and try to explode them out of a wall. Glitches and bugs also extend to item containers, which would frequently appear to be open despite being closed, and the special effects for some guns just not working correctly, like a beam of light suddenly cutting out. I also had dialogue go silent, skipped dialogue, and mission triggers that just wouldn't trigger. Overall, Borderlands 4 is a mess on console, and while I haven't played it on PC, the Steam reviews are mixed, with many players reporting poor performance over there as well.
It all started here. The planet Kairos. Heard of it? Of course not, and for good reason. For thousands of years, it was a place of legend, hidden from the outside universe. The only way you found it was by accident or chance. And if you did, well, you weren't ever going to leave. For Kairos was a prison, ruled by a tyrant made immortal by alien technology. They called him the Timekeeper, and his order was nothing less than absolute.
Alright, if the game is buggy, then what about its story? Is it good enough to overcome the technical issues? Unfortunately, the story of Borderlands 4 is just alright, and it feels like a major pivot after the backlash received from Borderlands 3. The game's much darker than other entries in the series, but it still tries to have main characters act like psychotic killers. It just doesn't strike that balance of humor and seriousness that the other games had. Borderlands 3 was way too campy, weird, and unserious to be good, but Borderlands 4 is too much in the opposite direction. There are a lot more deaths and sad moments that your character tries to approach in a lighthearted way that just doesn't fit well. The story takes place in Kairos 6 years after Borderlands 3. This is a new planet, with the game taking place on a single, massive open-world map. The goal is to open up a vault being protected by the Timekeeper, the main bad guy of this game. Unlike Handsome Jack, the Timekeeper isn't memorable and is just sort of there to act as an impediment and the bad guy with no real interesting facts apart from being thousands of years old. The main story has you finding 3 MacGuffins to open up the last level to win the game, and that's pretty much it. So if the main storyline is sort of okay, then what about the side content? Borderlands really used to excel in its side content, and Borderlands 4 does keep up that tradition to an extent. There are a lot of side missions here, offered up throughout the world by a variety of quest givers, but most of them are clear an area or fetch quests. Although some of them are really good, such as the one that has you doing puzzles in an escape room. But for this section, my opinion on the storyline is that it does get the job done, but it won't stick with you after the game ends, unlike Borderlands 2.
The secret, you ask, that justified keeping an entire planet in chains? A vault. At the center of his seat of power. Whispers told of unknowable treasures locked away inside. Perhaps even the source of his immortality.
So the game is buggy, the story is just alright, then the gameplay has to be something special, right? It's a Borderlands game, filled with crazy guns and hordes of enemies. How can that not be good? Well, the gameplay is also just alright. Let's start with the guns. They weren't anything special. They switched things up a bit by giving you weapons that don't reload instead of cooling down, but the biggest gimmick is the alternative functions to these guns. Press a button and you may switch the ammo type consumed, the elemental type, or give an alt fire that supports the gun, and is refilled on a cooldown. But Borderlands 4 just doesn't seem to have the crazy unique weapons of its predecessors. There are unique weapons for sure, such as grenades that do different things, shields with effects that change your playstyle, but there's nothing really wacky and nothing really stands out. Instead, uniques are more like regular guns given an advantage somehow, like locking onto enemies or improving status effects. There wasn't a single weapon that I used that I truly felt unique or super crazy about. In fact, there were very few weapons that I just enjoyed using. They each felt like they were underpowered at times or not really suitable for the moment. For an FPS, I should love using the guns provided, but Borderlands 4 didn't give me that feeling. In fact, when I found a gun that I sort of enjoyed, it would quickly be rendered useless by the levels I was gaining, meaning I had to switch it out. Unlike previous games, I couldn't find a way to improve a weapon until I completed the main story over 35 hours later. Previous games had given me the option to improve my weapon if I wanted to bring it through the game with me, but Borderlands 4 didn't. Apart from the combat, Borderlands 4 is a big game taking place in a single map that is massive. Rather than allowing you to fast travel to a bunch of different places, it does restrict you to main hubs or hideouts you unlock by having to do a side quest for each one. This forces you to explore and interact with the world more rather than just hopping through it. But just like so much of Borderlands 4, this comes with a downside as well. It can be tedious to trek to the same location time and time again because it doesn't have a fast travel next to a quest giver that you need to see a half dozen times or more. The game also hides items you need to find for quests and missions in an area, like data pads or switches, and it can take a long time to find them as the game doesn't give you many hints. There could be a data pad located high above you, and I lost track of how many times I became beyond frustrated looking for a switch or where to go in this game. It does give you a line to follow during missions, sort of like Dead Space, but it's disabled during these Easter egg hunts. Look, I'm not saying Borderlands 4 is a bad game. It's not. It's just not a good game. It's an alright, sanitized, made by committee type game that feels like it was rushed in development, and whoever worked on it may have just phoned it in at times because they knew people would buy it anyway.
It's got a fast travel and everything! And open! Ow! Rookie! This door attacked me! Rough it up! Okay, first thing, find the data pad with the security codes to claim this site as Safe House of the Crimson Resistance!
Let's go into the pros and cons of Borderlands 4. For the pros, there's a lot of content here. While I did most of the side quests, there were a few I didn't complete, along with the end game of defeating progressively stronger bosses. Even then, it still took me between 35 and 40 hours to beat. Some of the side quests are really good, keeping that humor and craziness of Borderlands. The game ties in nicely with the rest of the series. But for the cons, the story is darker in tone than I had expected, and then the new tone didn't mesh well with the humor that they tried to go with the rest of the series. The game is buggy, and the mission design focuses on clearing enemies from an area, a problem when they would glitch into walls and hard to reach places. I did not play the DLC, but I heard that it's expensive and can be beaten in just a few hours. There are a lot of elements to Borderlands 4 that does seem like a cash grab. And that's it for another review. So, to answer the question, is Borderlands 4 worth playing on console? Yes, it is, but not at the full price. I would not recommend paying more than $20 or $30 for this game, and I would completely avoid any of the DLC, and I would also not play it on PC, as it is apparently in a worse technical state than on console. I'm the Casual Console Gamer on YouTube, and I'll see you all in the next review.